Good morning and welcome back to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is going to be overwhelm. So, in order to prepare ourselves for conversation around that, let's just take a few minutes to get ourselves present and here right now. So, take a deep breath in through your nose. Fill your lungs with all that oxygen and just imagine that energy moving out throughout your whole body, and then exhale gently and relax. And now take another deep breath in. Fill up those lungs. Bring in all that energy. Imagine yourself breathing in life. And as you exhale, just release and relax any tension in your neck, in your shoulders, in your jaw, in your back. And now let's just gently place our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel that tingling. Just allow that wonderful, delicious sensation and allow yourself to become present right here, right now. Welcome. So, overwhelm. I think this is probably quite a timely topic for so many folks. The reason that I decided to talk about it today is because I kind of woke up with that clenching in my throat and a little bit of a knot in my belly and my mind racing a bit. And I think this is probably something that so many of us contend with on a more or less regular basis. So I figured let's address it. So, what happens to create overwhelm? My experience is mostly that it is the mind processing through a zillion things at once and not being able to really sort through um, and find a, a linear path, just a dump of information that's just churning and churning and churning. And so there are lots of ways to address overwhelm on lots of different levels. The most obvious is the doing level. And so the first thing, good morning, Dido, welcome. So glad you're here. Thank you. So we're talking about overwhelm this morning. So the most obvious thing to do first, or maybe not first, but the most obvious doing thing that we can do around overwhelm is to get the stuff that's in our heads out of our heads and on paper or in a form that we can then look at it, evaluate it, and sort through it. And my experience is that overwhelm for me is when I have a whole pile of things, and as I'm walking through them in my mind, they're jumbling up together, and I just it can engender sort of a panic, with all these things that I can't sort through. So putting them on paper or putting them in some kind of application so that I can sort through them, prioritize them, discard things that are not relevant, schedule things. That's a really helpful way to uh, way to follow through. So Randa Speller says, "Haven't seen you for a while. Hello. Well, welcome. I hope that you can join us again more regularly. It's every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern here on Enlightened World Network, Rhonda. So thank you so much for being here. We're talking about overwhelm. So there are actually some applications, some apps and software that are really, really helpful in getting things out of your head and into a format that you can then track, and we're getting real practical here, but this can be life altering as much as some of the more spiritually or psychologically based conversations. So one of the applications that I use is something called Trello, and that's spelled Trello. and you can look that up online. There's a level that you can use it for free, which is what I do, and it's really cool because it's visual. You set up these cards or boards, and then on these boards you have cards, and on the cards, each of the cards becomes sort of on each card within the board you put a list item. So for instance, I have a board that is my to-dos, and then I have individual cards on my to-do board that is urgent, today, tomorrow, this week, someday, and then there's a done column. So as I walk through the things that are on my today list, for instance, I can drag them or I can reposition them into the done list. And the cool thing too is that you can drag and drop these things to reorder them in priority. So that's really helpful. You can put timers and deadlines on those, reminders, and if you're doing stuff with other people, you can include other people with them. And it's just been a really great tool for me. It allows me to keep information all in one place. I actually have a board for books that I want to read, and so I have my cards in there is to read, reading, read, so that I can keep track. And each card, you could write a description of the book if you wanted to for your reference. And so I find that to be a really helpful tool. Another great tool is something called Airtable. And Airtable is kind of like Excel, but it allows you to, it might also be like Access in that it allows you to take this table of information, each of the records, individual records for maybe a contact or a client, or I use it to track my sessions with my clients. So I have one table that has all my clients, and then another table that interfaces with that allows me to put in the details of my sessions with my clients. And that's been invaluable to be able to keep track of what's going on with the people that I'm working with, that you have ability to sort that through all kinds of filters. It's pretty intuitive and it's online, and both of these programs, Trello and Airtable, are available for the cell phone as well. And if you have a really big project that you're navigating a whole bunch of different pieces, another thing that you might consider is, oh boy, what is it? I will remember. Anyway, I don't use it yet. It's kind of like the next level of Trello and Airtable. And oh my gosh, I hope I remember what it is. Anyway, so that's practical things to deal with overwhelm, is get things out of your head. And if you like paper and pen, another great way to get things out of your head is by writing things on 3x5 cards or stickies that you can post, and then you can move those around. And that can be a really helpful thing too. Uh, Putting things where you can see them, getting them out of your head. So there's a getting things done is a Asana. Yes, thank you. I know you're always there for me. Asana is the other application that I was thinking of to be able to keep yourself on track. It allows you to coordinate with other people. It allows you to set deadlines. And so you have 3 applications that I spoke about just now: Trello, Asana, and Airtable, and they're all really great tools. And now we are going to look at self-management tools. So when there's that sense of panic, even before you get to the place where you can get stuff out of your head and into a format that you can interact with, And sometimes, like writing things on cards and post-its for me can be really helpful too, because there's something about having it in my hands, that moving things around, that can be awesome. But before even getting to that point, managing the state of anxiety and maybe breathlessness and maybe like upset in your stomach about all this anxiety around too much to do or overwhelm, is first to take a few deep breaths and comfort that younger person inside that is feeling so overwhelmed and unable to interact with what's going on. Just say, hey, you know what? It's going to be okay. You're all right. Take a breath. Just relax. And breathing is one of the most powerful things to shift the actual physical experience of overwhelm. So, not just breathing the way we would normally breathe, but to breathe into your belly. So if you breathe in through your nose, deep into your belly, and as you're breathing, kind of use your belly as a bellows and expand it. So breathe, and as you're breathing in, your belly should distend, and it's almost like it pulls in more air for you as your belly pushes out. And then as you exhale, you can exhale through your mouth and collapse your belly as you're exhaling. So if you deliberately put your attention and your awareness on your belly and breathe in through your nose, expanding your belly, and then maybe even breathing deeper in and allowing that air to move not only into your belly but then fill your lungs and fill your chest. So it becomes a longer breath, and then exhale from your chest and then down through all the way to your belly. That is really, really helpful in calming down. And another thing that can be profoundly powerful is to imagine yourself surrounded by all these things that you need to do and or that you're feeling overwhelmed by, and see all those things around you with you in the middle, and then imagine yourself floating above it, looking down, seeing all these things. And as you float up, you can recognize some things will pop out as more important, other things will fade away. And the benefit of this sort of floating up and looking down is that you gain a broader perspective. And instead of feeling like everything is closing in on you, you get to be above it, you get to see it, and it can help you sort of sort through that territory. And let's see, using your belly as a bellows. You have such a great way with words. Well, Dido, thank you. Coming from someone who is such a wordsmith, I deeply appreciate that. Thank you. So let's see, we're talking about other ways to mitigate this experience of overwhelm. I know I've shown you the tapping previously in another session, and there's a whole cycle of tapping on meridians to release tension and anxiety. And I can walk through that with you really quickly, where you would tap on the outside of your hand and say something to the effect of, even though I feel incredibly overwhelmed, I love and appreciate myself completely. And if you can't say I love and appreciate myself completely, you could maybe say I love and appreciate my higher self, or I love and appreciate the spirit in me, or whatever it is. And you do that 3 times, and then what you can do is go through a cycle where you say, a shorthand is, even though I'm feeling overwhelmed, and this is on the inside of the eyebrow. You can do it both eyebrows, or you can do just one. Even though I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just don't know how I'm going to sort through everything I need to do, this feeling of overwhelm I feel in my belly. So I'm going to the outside of the eye, underneath the eye, under the nose. Um, Even though I kind of feel short of breath, um, and I'm feeling this feeling of overwhelm, I I am allowing myself to just move through those feelings. This is on between your lips and your chin, and then the inside of your collarbone, this feeling of overwhelm. I'm allowing myself to feel it and to move through it. And then under the arm, like right on your rib cage, moving through this feeling of overwhelm, and then ending on the head, this feeling of overwhelm. And then what you do is you check in and say, okay, well, how am I feeling? Am I feeling less overwhelmed? Is some overwhelm still there? And you just can keep repeating that cycle. You don't have to keep entering it into the circuit through, this is called the karate chop point. You can just keep going and cycle through until you feel better. Now, another variation on that is to cross pattern. And what this is doing is I have my arms crossed and I'm just tapping gently and saying, even though I have this deep feeling of overwhelm and I don't know how I'm going to get all these things done, and I have anxiety in my stomach and little tension in my throat, I'm gonna allow myself to just work through it, and I feel like there's so much to do, and as I'm breathing, I'm noticing that maybe it's letting up a little bit, and maybe the things that I'm focusing on aren't as important as I have made them to be, and maybe I can find my way to be breathing even easier and relaxing some of that tension. And you can go on like that. And so the benefit of this is that it's doing something called cross patterning. It's synchronizing the right and left hemispheres of your brain. And if you just try that, it can give you greater ease, and then you don't have to remember the whole circuit of of um, of meridian points to tap on. So uh, I don't know about you, but I am feeling better. I hope you are too. And the bottom line is all these things that we tend to overwhelm ourselves with are mostly not anywhere near as urgent as we make them. And so connecting to ourselves, loving ourselves, forgiving ourselves for not being super person, if that's what's going on, like, or biting off more than we can chew or whatever. Uh, being gentle, being gentle and loving, and forgiving of ourselves in the way that we would be gentle and loving and forgiving with others, and let ourselves reprioritize and really establish what it is that is truly important. And I'm going to say that the thing that is more important than all the things we need to do is our well being. And that as we cultivate our well being, we will expand our capacity to do the things that need doing. So, another thing that is entirely counterintuitive, but I've found it to be really effective when feeling really overwhelmed, instead of trying to do a million one things, or one of the million and one things I need to do. Because in the midst of overwhelm, what happens is I put my attention here, but my attention's really over here, and I'm trying to do this, but I'm thinking about that. Getting it all out of your head really helps so that you can just be where you are when you're there. And one of the other things that seems deeply, deeply counterintuitive, but has, as I said, been very effective for me, is when I'm in that state of overwhelm, to go do something that nurtures me. So it might be meditate. For me, I love, love, love nature and I love taking photographs. So maybe I'll go on a walk with my camera on my phone and just take pictures and do something that brings me joy. And so, yes, it takes the willingness to put your attention to that thing that gives you joy. But when you do that, it can free you up to be clearer in putting your attention at one thing after another on the things that then require doing. So Dido says, this is so rich. Thank you. All great, all kinds of great suggestions. I just made an index card to stick by my computer for reference. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, I hope it's helpful. And really, I have to say that, we talked about forgiving yourself, touching in, loving yourself up in the midst of this overwhelm, giving yourself reassurance. The other piece of that is like doing something that's nurturing for yourself. Separate yourself from all the to do and all the whirlwind of what's going on and just say, you know what? I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to do something for me. And I know it feels like you won't have time to do all the stuff that you already didn't have time to do, but it's some weird kind of alchemy how taking those few moments for yourself can open up time that you didn't even realize you had. So I hope that everybody does find this helpful. And Dido, I'm so glad that you found it of benefit. And share your tips and tricks for how to address and move through to the other side of overwhelm. And in the meantime, check out Enlightened World Network programming. There's such great stuff here, and lots of things to help you relax and de-stress. And I'm here every weekday from at 9 a.m. And this is the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin. This is Enlightened World Network, and I hope to have you join me again tomorrow. It's such a privilege to share this time with you. If you find it of benefit, please share and come back, and I'll see you again soon.